7 Days to Die 2.0 changed a lot of the zombies in 7 Days to Die, including new zombies, new zombie tiers, and changes to the existing zombies. It could be quite confusing for a new player, so I made a guide to all the new zombies, what they do, and how to counter them, and everything else you need to know about zombies in this update. Let's start with the new charged zombies. Charged zombies have the second highest amount of health in 2.0. They have more health than radiated zombies, but less than infernals, which I'll get to in a moment. What they do have going for them is that they are much faster than all the other zombie types, attack faster, and do the most damage. They do a base of 60 damage on Nomad, or a staggering 150 damage per hit on insane difficulty, with every other difficulty scaling in between those. Not all zombies can come in charged variants though, it's mostly just the more lightweight zombies. Cops, bikers, Hawaiians, lumberjacks, big mamas, and soldiers are all excluded from being charged. Charged zombies are of course resistant to stun effects like stun batons and electric fences, in that they recover a lot faster than normal compared to normal zombies. Charged zombies can appear in POIs and on horde nights, and will start to appear in those hordes as early as game stage 147, so you won't have to worry about them very much early on. You'll have to be quite careful when fighting charged zombies. They are pretty much the deadliest zombies you're going to encounter in POIs in terms of their ability to kill you, because of the incredible speed, very high health, and the just absolutely wild amount of damage they do. They should probably always be prioritized if you are in a POI fighting zombies, but they don't do as much block damage as some other zombie types, so you can kind of get away with ignoring them a little bit on horde nights in favor of taking down infernals. Speaking of infernals, the next tier added was infernal zombies, and these are of course resistant to fire. They do less damage than charged zombies, but more than radiated zombies at 112 damage on insane, all the way down to 45 on nomad, but they do a very high amount of block damage at 250 block damage per hit, and have extremely high health, often double what radiated zombies have. They're just extremely tanky and hard to actually stop, but they're more of a threat to your base than they are to you, unless you're locked in a room with them. Now let's cover the actual new individual zombies that were added. The Plague Spitter is the first, and it wanders around the desert biome and is a very common sight there. These zombies can also spawn inside of POIs and Blood Moon hordes in any biome. According to the Entity Group's XML file, they'll start to appear at game stage 91 on horde nights, and again that is in any biome, not just the desert. Plague Spitter has a base of 450 health and does twice as much damage per hit compared to normal zombies, with a base of 20 on nomad and 50 on insane, with a solid 100 block damage per hit as well. The Spitter does come in feral, radiated, charged, and infernal variants as well, and those can also spawn on horde nights. Ferals and radiateds do a base of 40 damage on nomad or 100 on insane, as well as 200 block damage, and the charged variant does a base of 60 damage on nomad or 150 on insane, with 150 block damage as well. Infernals do a much more reasonable 45 damage on nomad and 112 on insane, but with the same 250 block damage of other infernals. As for their health, the feral has a base of 950, radiated has 1700, charged has 1900, and the infernal Plague Spitter has a base health of 2500. It's worth noting that all zombies do have variability in their health, so it's usually not those exact numbers, but that is a rough average for most zombies. Plague Spitter has a special ability, which allows it to spit a swarm of insects at you. Now this swarm of insects isn't a projectile, it's actually a distinct flying enemy that does very little damage, but it slows you on hits. It also has a high chance of inflicting fatigues, infections, and stuns. The swarm is almost entirely immune to ranged damage, so make sure to use a melee weapon when you're taking them on, and the swarms are actually able to move through a lot of partial blocks, including scaffolding ladders, but they do have a harder time the more of these blocks you put in their way. The only ways I've found to stop him from doing his spit animation are to knock him over while he's doing it, remove one of his legs, staggering them in some way, and the best way I've found to do that reliably is actually with a sledgehammer, and the Plague Spitter swarms will follow you for about 10 seconds, so if you're trying to outrun them on a vehicle, you need to outrun them for about 10 seconds, which means you'll probably have to be faster than your bicycle to outrun them actually. The next guy is also a big big threat in 7 Days to Die 2.0, the Frostclaw. As the name would suggest, the Frostclaw spawns primarily in the snow biome, but will also start to appear in POIs and Horde Nights at game stages around 97. The Frostclaw also comes in 5 variants: the regular with 20 damage on Nomad, 50 on Insane and 100 block damage with a base of 600 health. The Feral has 40 damage on Nomad, 100 on Insane, 200 block damage and 900 health. The Radiated Frostclaw does the same damage as the Feral, but with 1600 health. The Charged does 60 damage on Nomad, 150 on Insane with 150 block damage and 1800 health. And the Infernal Frostclaw does 45 damage on Nomad, 112 on Insane and 250 block damage and 2400 health. The Frostclaw also has a unique ability to hurl boulders at the player at distance, and these do a lot of damage, going as high as 150 damage on Insane difficulty. And they also do splash damage that can hurt your friends and do huge amounts of damage to the blocks you are standing on, a 2.5 block radius for blocks and an almost 4 block radius for players. If the boulder hits you and you survive, you'll be stunned for good measure as well. The only real ways I found to counter this boulder, aside from of course moving out of the way, are to make sure again that he can't get out of the crouching animation, take out any of the Frostclaw's limbs because he can't do it when he's missing a hand or a leg, knock him over while he's doing the animation, or kill him. Mercifully, both the Frostclaw and the Plague Spitter have the same ranged attack regardless of if they're feral, regular, radiated or otherwise, unlike for example Cops, which have a more dangerous ranged attack as you go up in tiers. The Burned Zombie had some changes worth noting in 2.0. They're not very big, but we should talk about them. The base Burnt Zombie is exactly the same. All the later ranks now have a small chance to set you on fire for 10 seconds when they attack you, so make sure you're extra careful when fighting burnt zombies if you don't want to take a lot of unnecessary extra damage. The Dire Wolf has been reined in ever so slightly in that now they spawn at game stage 127 on Horde Nights, instead of spawning as early as the second week on a lot of Horde Nights in 1.0, which was ridiculous and very much hated by most players. The last zombie we'll cover is the Mutated Zombie, which isn't actually new, but I think it is worth covering alongside the Plague Spitter and the Frostclaw because they were added to the game to sort of be the desert biome and snow biome equivalents of the Mutated Zombie. It has been a very long time since I've covered them on the channel, and they have received an overhaul since I covered it. So Mutated Zombies now spawn way more frequently in the Wasteland biome, and they also spawn in POIs and Hordes as early as game stage 85, so they're a lot more common than the Plague Spitter or the Frostclaw as far as Hordes are concerned. The regular does 20 damage on Nomad, 50 on Insane, and 100 block damage with a base of 600 health. And an interesting thing about the Mutated Zombie is it seems to be working on essentially its own damage model, whereas most of the other zombies in the game have a template that a lot of other zombies use. For some reason, the Mutated Zombie was just given its own unique damage profiles. So the Feral does 25 damage on Nomad, 62 on Insane, and 140 block damage with 900 health. The Radiated does 30 damage on Nomad, 75 on Insane, and 180 block damage with 1600 health. The Charged does 60 damage on Nomad, 150 on Insane with 200 block damage and 1800 health. And the Infernal does 50 damage on Nomad, 125 on Insane, and 250 block damage with 2400 health. The Mutated Zombie has a special ability as well, and this is an AoE radiation attack. It has a very high chance of causing infection, and it does about 30 damage per hit on Nomad, but the real danger is the radiation damage, which messes up your screen and does damage over time. Fortunately, it also doesn't get stronger with each level of the zombie. These are pretty easy to counter, just don't get close to them. I do find it quite interesting that the zombie you are going to encounter latest in the game, i.e. the Wasteland Special Zombie, is actually a lot easier to beat than the Frostclaw or the Plague Spitter. I do think they might get a buff in the future to make them more scary. But in the meantime, they're not too bad. If you want more 7 Days to Die 2.0 tips and tricks, click on this video appearing on the screen now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.